Since 2014, the Australian Advisory Board on Impact Investing has been bringing together people, ideas and resources to tackle big issues.
Great outcomes for people and the planet are our goal. Things like strong communities, quality jobs, healthcare, education, affordable housing, solutions to poverty, environmental sustainability, vibrant arts and culture.
More people are interested in being involved. And there is a growing acknowledgement that governments can't be expected to do everything. We all have a role to play, and there are other resources we can and need to draw on.
Impact investing is helping to resource things that benefit communities and support innovative responses to challenging issues by providing access to more and different forms of financing. The goal is to deliver a social, environmental or cultural impact as well as a financial return.
Here in Australia, there is activity happening across different parts of the impact investing ecosystem, involving social entrepreneurs,
not-for-profit and for-profit service providers,
investors of different shapes and sizes,
financial and other intermediaries,
government,
and market builders focused on developing the overall ecosystem.
We have been out in the field asking these different groups for their views on what's been happening, where impact investing can go and what's needed to get there.
And the good news is that you told us that things have developed significantly over the last few years.
The market is growing.
Different players are getting involved.
People are starting to put their toe in to test the water.
We are starting to build a track record of investments.
We have moved from more fragmented activity to working in a more structured and coordinated way, and can see a field of practice taking shape.
There is potential to do more, to support more activity and mobilise more capital for investment both in Australia and overseas.
How big people think that potential is depends on how optimistic they are about getting different actors in the ecosystem more engaged.
The need for scale came up again and again, but it meant different things to different people.
On the financing side, people talked about needing to build a stronger pipeline of investments and increase the size of investments so they would be more attractive to large-scale investors and super funds.
People in government and service delivery usually talked about scale in terms of increasing the reach and impact of activity.
What came through clearly is that we need both. The question is how and who drives that.
In many of our conversations, there was a sense that so far, momentum has tended to be finance-led rather than being activity-led. Investors and financial intermediaries are seen as playing a key role in pulling activity into and through the system. Governments are too by trying new approaches like social impact bonds.
Some social entrepreneurs and larger-scale service providers have been part of that, but for many, impact investing is still a grey area. Some don't see it as relevant to them. Others find it difficult to understand or hard to link into investors to harness more and different resources to support their work.
Innovation is clearly happening on the ground and there are opportunities for investment, but much of that activity is happening outside the current impact investing ecosystem. It is not pushing into the ecosystem, certainly not at scale. There was a clear sense that we need to balance up the power dynamics in the system and get both push and pull factors working in sync to drive impact at scale.
Many of you also told us there is a big gap in the number and mix of knowledgeable intermediaries who have the skills to connect opportunities and investment. You identified a need to ensure that there are intermediaries who can help design activities to drive innovation and scale, as well as ones who can help structure investment products and transactions.
You also said there is a need to get smarter and more creative about how investments are structured and packaged. Some focused on using more recognisable products and packaging options.
Some of you talked about achieving that by combining different types of capital.
Some also talked about aggregating and streamlining activity.
A number of you observed that catalytic finance that is prepared to go first and mobilise activity is hard to find. You saw governments and philanthropy as the logical sources for this. Many reflected that while Australian governments are active, there is still a lot more they can and need to do to incentivise and direct activity.
A number of you said governments should do more to signal and support activity around potential investment sweet spots.
On issues where there is clear policy interest, a need for innovation and the nature of the prospective investment opportunity could attract larger scale investors. Think areas like affordable housing, disability and regional infrastructure.
Some of you, including policymakers, identified outcomes-based contracting as an important tool that governments can use to help unlock innovation and support pipeline development.
Many of you observed that getting access to data to baseline, benchmark and monitor impact is still hard. That contributes to the time and cost of structuring investments and can make or break an opportunity. A number of people noted that because government holds a lot of the data, it will need to play a key role in working through this issue.
A number of you were concerned about potential impact washing. You observed that some investments entering the market are impact light, and if not managed appropriately, this could undermine the credibility of the developing market.
On the upside, some of you were quite optimistic about the motivating effect that the UN Sustainable Development Goals and shared value are starting to have on corporates and super funds. You saw these as important tools for companies to see how they can structure both their business and investment activity for impact.
You also talked about the potential and yet largely untapped power of grassroots consumers to get companies engaged.
Everyone we talked to was keen to see the impact investing field in Australia continue to grow and develop.
Some of you could see concrete opportunities in the short term to accelerate that process. Those opportunities focused on activity targeting sweet spots for innovation and unlocking capital, particularly from the super funds. Other levers for growth you identified were design for scale to replicate good ideas,
Deepen and skill up the intermediary market in a sustainable way.
package opportunities differently to make them more attractive to investors, including pooling and aggregation options,
Strengthen impact management and measurement.
discourage impact washing,
Attract sources of catalytic capital.
encourage governments to broaden and deepen their engagement and be more proactive,
Build on growing interest in the SDGs to engage and mobilise institutional investors and corporates.
take up global opportunities and support development in our region.
Invest time, resources and effort in market building.
You have told us that impact investing has and is developing as a field in Australia, that there is significant untapped potential and that you want to see that realised.
We have the opportunity to supercharge the impact investing ecosystem by working proactively together.
Let's take up that challenge and make a real contribution to the people and the planet and the Australia we all want for the future.